Recording in progress.
Good morning, all. Let's wait for 1 minute because the last meeting has ended late. So I'm just waiting 1 more minute to switch the students. Rishikesh, charging will be okay. You can keep your mic mute. My dear students, when you're attending the online sessions, you need to rename yourself properly. If you're not renaming yourself, then your attendance will not be recorded. Mayurasa, Kalyani, rename yourself.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Now, I think most of us switched, so let's begin. Yesterday, we started our understanding what is about corporate restructuring, and we give an example of Vijay Mallya. So today, we are going to discuss about the further details of corporate restructuring, and we are going to take the two case studies of India. Then, if the time permits, we're talking about the financial distress. So let's continue. The restructuring is reshuffling, rearranging, or reshaping the particular activity so that the working of the same activity is smooth, regular, and effective. So, considering the same, in case of corporate restructuring, we have a different types, different formats which we need to follow. In corporate restructuring, we already have discussed we have financial restructuring and so on. So let's move and discuss more in detail. So the question arises why it is so imperative. Now, what is meaning of imperative? Imperative means why it is so important, why it is so desperate that I should change. The simple thing, I should be changing myself. The reason I want to survive, I want to earn the profits, I want to gain the market advantage. Let me give an example. Suppose I'm having a car manufacturing industry. I'm doing well. I have excess profits. So I can go backward for raw materials or I can go forward for any other things. Suppose I decided that, okay, my car business is doing good. What I required? Tire. I required nut and bolts. I required paint. So I switched to this all companies and amalgamate or add in my portfolio. What will happen? Ultimately, the raw material which I'm getting is cost effective. Now, instead of charging 100 rupees, which was previous price, at least 80 rupees is my charge, and the 20 rupees gain to final product will be achieved. So, to manage my financial position, to understand the future gains, and to nullify the loss or to strengthen the chain of operation, I need to restructure myself. The best think, transform, or perish. Either I will shift my business, I will switch my business, and I will work. Now, how many of you remember your fathers or grandfathers? They used to drive something called as scooter. So, Hamara Bajaj. So, it was a great advertisement. Used to be displayed on television. Hamara Bajaj. And now, what is the scenario? You will never find the same scooters now existed as a new two-wheeler. It was era of 1978 to 1985 when the scooters were most popular. They used to command the Indian market. Till 2006, LML Vespa, Chetak, these were the commanding scooters, and people used to wait for 9 months, 10 months to get their dream two-wheeler. But the launch of Splendor CDSS had changed everything. It has affected that people now shifted from one person to other. The options has started. And then all of you know what happened next is emergence of Hero Honda. So if the Bajaj has not changed and still continue with the scooters, it might have possible that today the what we see the Bajaj as two-wheeler, that is mostly Bajaj Pulsar, the revolution is a welcome. The change is welcome. If I do not change, the problem happens with me is I'm making my losses. The second example in India is Hindustan Motor is producing cars, and that time only two producers were there. One is Hindustan Motor, and second is Fiat. So when Hindustan Motor used to supply ambassadors, the Fiat was the second competitor. But Fiat, the market ratio of Fiat was a very less. So when Suzuki entered into agreement with Maruti India Limited, and it was boosted by Rajiv Gandhi to introduce international level products in India, it becomes a different scenario. And when Maruti started selling its products, the famous product was Maruti Omni and Maruti 800. It resulted into loss making of Ambassador, but till then also, the Ambassador never changed its strategy, never changed its product, never done any upgradation to its basic product. And what is the result? Now, Ambassador is outdated. No more people are buying, selling, trading, or dealing about Ambassador. It's a legacy. It's a good product. But when you are out of competition, when you ignore the customer sentiments, when you ignore what the people think, you just believe this is my product, you have it, you take it, the customer will nod you. Customer will say, definitely say, if you're not listening to me, why I should bother about it? And that's the one concern. The products of Indian market are in danger and it required a restructuring. So if you change, if you transform, if you recognize the flow of technology, flow of preferences, you can survive in the market. Or else, if you're not able to understand anything like this, you will become outdated and simply you are shut down. The best example is Nokia. So let's understand the difference between restructuring and reorganization. Restructuring is shaping the business or resetting the process where I will be defining the place, process, and people in a new format. I will be describing how the things can be more modified or more smartly can be done. So, when you talk about restructuring, We are starting the journey of new product, journey of new process. Whereas recognition, it means I'm just establishing myself as new way. Now, all of you seen the logo of Mahindra, the logo of Mahindra has drastically changed. The company remains same. The product remains same. But what has happened? The company has smartly recognized himself as a smart company by changing its logo, by adjusting himself as a new model. Let me show you what the Mahindra has done. So, if you can see, the Mahindra was having this logo, and now Mahindra is following this logo. So, this is called recognition. In recognition, I was interested to establish myself in new avatar. I want to furnish myself in a new way where I'm having the same product portfolios, but earlier I was using this logo where I was called as a traditional. And then from here to here, when I shifted and new logo, new identity, I'm achieving. It's called recognition. So simply restructuring is reshuffling the technical part, reshuffling the finance part, or reshuffling uh, what I can say your marketing or any other products. But in recognition, I'm establishing my brand as a free start. So I hope the difference is clear. So let's move on. The types of restructuring are mostly financial, technological, and the structural. The financial restructuring talks about managing my debts or managing my income. The structural restructuring or technical restructuring talks about modernization, introduction of new method, and so on. Whereas organizational restructuring talks about bankruptcy, mergers, takeover, and so on. But overall, I can say that the whole restructuring is being diverted to a single point. I want to earn the profit, I want to sustain in the market, and I want to be continue as the challenging organization where I'm imparting the required things. So, in short, the restructuring, the purpose is not only earn the profit, but the purpose is to survive, regain, and reboost my cycle. To give another example, if you remember the example which I quoted in the class of product life cycle of Hero Honda, earlier there was no motorcycles, only scooters of Bajaj and LML Vespa was there. So they shifted toward the motorcycle. Initially, it was not liked by people because that time SD and Mazda was two the motorcycles and one more, sorry, Rajdoot was prevailing, but they were so critical to handle and so bulky, the people were not happy. Then initially, the Splendor was launched as a profit-making product, and once it started making profits, the company switched to the other versions like Passion, CD Pro, CD Deluxe, and so on, and it started progressing. After some time, when the Bajaj launched its Pulsar, the growth of Bajaj start increasing. Now the question happens, if the Splendor will start declining market, what to do? So what the Splendor has done smartly, they introduce the Super Splendor, Splendor NX, and so on. So they have diverted their one product into multiple options. They have done the technical integration. They have done the changes simply to avoid the loss. And this happens to be a financial restructuring. The another case study on interest level, which I quoted in this PPT, is General Motors. General Motors has two times done the financial restructuring. Uh, Before that, Henry Ford in Ford Motors, he has gone out for the restructuring. He was producing the famous cars called T models. The T models are very liked and subscribed by people. But along with T models, when the other players like Volkswagen and other that start producing car, they offer the multicolor that you can take the white, you can take the blue, red, black, or so on. But the Ford ignored and it continued to be only black color. So in that case, the company did not progress because they don't understand the sentiments of customers and they don't re-recognize or restructure themselves. Similar thing happened about General Motors. General Motors was struggling regarding their sale of products in India. They tried to go in joint ventures, but the company did not aid. They tried to go with joint venture Tata's, they go with the Honda India Limited, but it don't well. And ultimately, they set a setback and they have to go out of India for several reasons. Now, what is the lacuna in General Motors? One, competitive pricing and supply of spare parts. And they did not bother about the restructuring their supply cycle, and that results in their walkout. Now, let's talk about what is the operational restructuring. Operational restructuring is eliminating the possible loss by wastage of material, time, and technology. Now, all of you remember something which you studied in the first semester in decision science, queuing theory. What is queuing theory? Queuing theory, it talks about movement of goods and services where they are demanded and ignoring where they are not demanded. So let me give an example. If this is a bank layout and this is a door, you will never find the cash deposit or withdrawal counter in the front. In the front, you will find the counter for credit card, mutual fund, and insurance. When you enter in a bank, you will always find the manager is sitting backside. The assistant manager is sitting in a front desk, and here somewhere you'll find cash counters are located. The other things like FD, R&D, and so on, the counters are here. Why people are asked to move inside? Because if I keep the cash counters in the start, so people will withdraw the money and simply they will go out. What about the other products bank is interested to see? So that's why they make the layout in a such a way that the customers which coming in a bank, he will be in a bank for more time, more duration, and before he exit, he will come across the products. Now, take example of DMart. DMart has a large space for sale, but when it comes to the exit counters, they narrow the space, and at each space, they will do the location of some good things Like they got chocolates, they got batteries, they got cars, short games, and some tiny products are listed. Why? Because a person who is existing from the demand, he already purchased something. But how make him motivated to buy the unnecessary things? They simply make an advertisement. They simply go with the sales. So if something is about to become outdated, something is about to get absolute in terms of technology, you most of the time see the offers. For example, if Apple 16 is going to launch, you'll see the offers on Apple 10, 11, 12, and 13. Why? Because the offers make my intentional to buy more. And in same way, the operational restructuring of DMart is help them a lot for managing their business. The second best example is when you approach to the movie. Suppose this is the layout of a movie theater. You just walk in. First, you will find the counters where they are selling tickets. And when you enter inside, you will never find immediately the sitting arrangements. What you find, the last space is occupied by the food counters and different displays and service. And then here somewhere you will find entrance is there. And in entrance, when you enter, you can see the movie. Why? Because when I reshuffle or reorganize this space, I can manipulate my customers. I can make them influence that they can buy the other products. They can take the other products. So this is operational restructuring. So operational restructuring is interested to sell the more products, to make the way of operation more easy and do the thing. Now, all of you know that we got something as production line. Now, what is a production line? I got doors, I got headlights, I got tail lights, I got tubes, I got something and something. So the product is moving in one direction and it is assembled and gone. So why the assembly is preferred? Because if I'm attaching tires, I have given some time. This is backbone by stores. This is backbone by purchase officer and so on. But at the end, I will see that the material is handed to me so that my station will not block the next production. I will transport next, next, and next. This will increase the speed of my production. This will help to create more quality products in less time. And that's why operational restructuring is very crucial. To give a better example, suppose you enter into any PMPL bus. This is a PMPL bus. There you find a large door is given in between where you can walk in. But there is always a small door for exit. Why? Because we are always in hurry to catch the bus. But while dropping out from the bus, we are already instructed our mind. मेरा bus stop आ रहा है, मेरा bus stop आ रहा है, I need to get down. So this way, the operational restructuring of PMPL was done, understanding the psychology of customers, understanding their aims. And this technology or automation or modernization helps to eliminate the waste, helps for more efficiency and more productivity, ultimately more profits. I have given here case study of IBM. In 1990s, when IBM was producing the computers, that time they were not doing uh, assembly. Rather, the one person was totally himself making one computer. They switched their computer. Initially, the one computer, because IBM is also producing desktop computers. No more the IBM computers are purchased in India because Dell and HP has surpassed the IBM expertise. So when they was used to assemble a computer, the normal layout time was 38 minutes minimum for processing one single keyboard of 102 keys. So they try to investigate what happened about their keyboard, a simple keyboard. I'm not taking case of whole computer. They observe that the persons, because their assembly lines were located in China, Taiwan, and Cambodia, the person who is assembling, he didn't understand the proper English. He was a bit confused about the letters, sometimes two letters, sometimes one letter, and the issue was happening. So what they done? Suppose a person is sitting here, they prepared the chart layout of that keyboard, and earlier they have assembly structure like this, that this is a board which contain pieces, and person is to sit here and you do it. Now they change the structure, that there will be one line, the board is in between, there will be chairs, and there will be timers. What happens? Instead of one person and two-person, I got 5 to 6 people working on same line, and they pull the timer. Suppose here person A is there and here person B is there. They put the timer across. Suppose person A finish his task, but person B is pending. They give 3 seconds stopwatch. If 3 seconds the person B also do not finish the task, the alarm was set, and this become more structural, more efficiency, and people become more attentive towards the response. And they made the pair like C and D, E and F, and this pairing helped them for checking, assembling the keyboards. Later, the roll number 63, please stop making any gestures on screen. Later, they gone to the automation, and this was shifted again more cost effective. So operational efficiency has reduced from 38 minutes to 7 seconds. And this 7 seconds, if you just count it 38 minutes, roughly around 180 plus seconds and 7 seconds, if I divide, it has reduced their time, it has increased their production, and simply the output efficiency. The second case is organizational restructuring. Now, recently there were two great bad news for Indian IT sector. The Meta has reduced 22,000 people. I'm not saying they're all in India. Meta has reduced their 22,000 people, whereas Microsoft has laid out 34,000 people. Now, why these giant tech companies, they reduce the people? The simple thing, automation. The simple thing, cost effective. Simple thing, speed. If the coding is done by AI, why I require person to do? So I can restructure by way of people, I can restructure by way of role, I can restructure by way of the activity process. One person doing one task. Now I reshuffle. One person doing two tasks. So I'll define the role, I'll break down the activities, I'll make down the process, and I will understand how and effective I can do the restructuring. The team alignment, role definition, motivation, reward stick approach, or giving bonuses, doing welfare activities, these all are part of my organization restructuring. In operational restructuring, my process, technology, or method is changed. Whereas in organizational restructuring, the people are concentrated. How I can change the role, how I can manage their responsibility, how I can use their skills maximum if say in organizational restructuring. In case of organizational restructuring, I again need to analyze if a person is poor in X skill, I should shift into the Y, shift into Z, and so forth and so on. So this is an organizational restructuring. So to give a better example, in India, we got two type of organizations. Some organization like Tata Motors, where they never kick out a person, and we got some organizations like Reliance, where hire and fire is a fast. If you perform, it's okay. Not perform, you are being replaced. Now, given the case study of Microsoft only, Microsoft has started its journey as plain supplier from Windows software and plain supplying for like Microsoft Office and so on. But need of its upgradation was not desired. But when AI started, everything started, the need of people started reducing and they shifted their focus. Earlier, when I do job in IT, it was C, C++, VB, Java, Hadoop, and so on. Now everybody talks about Python, Laxes, and so on. The simple organizational restructuring effort is earlier you used to get the calls from call center. सर आपको क्रेडिट कार्ड चाहिए, आपको मोबाइल चाहिए and something. Now most of the calls are automated. First, the computer speaks with you, and then if you show the interest, the person jumps in and he will solve your queries. Even you purchase or sell something on Flipkart, Amazon, or Blinkit, and if you have any doubts, any trouble, the first response is given by the AI, and then the query is very serious. It is handled by human being. So earlier I required 10 people to do the handling of customer care. Now that work is taken over by AI, and hardly 3 or 4 people they can take care. The second best example of restructuring is State Bank of India. If you have visited the any branch in 2000 and now in 2026, you will see the cabins are reshuffled. Even the cabins are there. There are no people. Why? Because earlier one person used to perform one task, and now the multiple roles are assigned to one individual, and so he is in operation of multiple duties, and that is why they enter into organizational restructuring. Now let's understand what is organizational restructuring process. As I said, organizational restructuring is not something that I necessarily welcome. It is a phase which I need to follow because I'm entering into my survival phase. If I want to survive, I want to progress, I want to move further, I need to think about 10 years after what is my role. I need to give a thought what is going to be happen. If I do not plan in that way, ultimately it will result in loss of benefits and I will to make the losses. So when I'm dealing about loss, I'm dealing about the expenses, I'm entering into the financial restructuring. So the first phase of financial restructuring is diagnosis. I have to analyze which type of loss I'm making, whether I have excess people, I have outdated machinery, I have wrong location of my business, I have limitation of resources, I have legal problems, and so on. So what I'll do is I will recheck my position, product, price, place, people, and the legalities. What is the problem I find? I will jot down the issues. Then I will plan how I can eliminate these issues either by new method, new people, training, or something merger emerges. After analyzing the issue, finding out the possible solutions, I will evaluate what is the best solution I can do. Suppose I need technology, I'll go for innovations, I'll buy the innovations and apply my company. I want more and more smart people, I'll go with the training of existing people. Those who are not interested for training and change, I can shift them to the other departments. If they are not ready for other departments, I can do with the VRS and so on. After selecting this plan and process, I will go on implementation where I will do the scrutiny, either it may be operational, organizational, or technological change. I will implement it and test the results. Once I test the results and I find the system is set, what I will do is I will shift towards supervision for further certain period. And if I find the things are get corrected, then my organizational restructuring ends. But in case here I'll observe the issue is still going on, then what is my role? Go back to the step number one. So I have to continue this step till time I become successful or my turnaround of organization is achieved. If I just stop at diagnosis, planning, implementation, or result process, I'm simply bottleneck myself towards the profitability, the advantage or gain which I may have in the future markets. Now, what are the common challenge in restructuring? The first and most interesting, it is the laws and unions. Because when I restructure, it happens to change into work conditions and payout. So the labor and trade unions, they are the biggest threat about restructuring. There is call about the trust factor because 10 years I'm doing the task and suddenly you come to me and tell me, no, this task outdated. Instead of doing this thing, tomorrow you shift to this. So communication to the persons, convincing them that you need to change and the reason of change. Sometimes people accept it positively and sometimes they resist because they feel it's an personal remark towards their efficiency, it's a challenge towards their capacity. So people insist because of anxiety and uncertainty, and they create an antitrust environment that no management is going to fire the people. Now, most commonly question is whether AI will take the jobs. The simple answer, Vishal, please mute yourself. The simple answer, AI will not take your jobs. AI will rather generate a jobs because once one opportunity is closed, you got multiple things to do with that opportunity. But if I started robots in a bank, what happened to bank employees? No, they cannot replace entire human beings. Once I implement robots, I require maintenance of robots, servicing of robots, and somebody to monitor the working and functionality of robots. So I remove the two people by employing three more people. So I'm just changing the roles, but there is a resistance. So people resistance the restructuring because they feel they are losing jobs, they are losing their money, they are losing their control, and the most important, they don't want to adopt something new technology. They feel that this adaptation may lead to their frustration. For example, in 1995-96, most of the people required to switch from manual to the computers. So some people are so frustrated that they choose the VRS. हमने पूरे जिंदगी कागज में लिखा है, आज ये टाइप करके मांग रहे. So the people are not ready. They feel why I should type, why I should learn computer. Now at the age of 50 and 50 plus, if you're asking me to learn something, I'm not interested. So people resist. Then sometimes the miscommunication, the influencing offline communication change the mindset of people, and that hurdles are there. Then the restructuring has another limitation about customers' confidence. Now, earlier, the Nirma was the only product, and there was a Ghadi determinant and 501. These soap bars are much more demanded. Nirma and Surf, they started journey together almost, but the Surf has changed its role. When they get a competition from Ariel, they had diverted their portfolio, but Nirma continues the same portfolio. And now we see the customer confidence is erodes in Nirma. People feel it's a cheap product. The suppliers are not happy. The negative media coverage and competitors which they have has suffered them a loss. And this is a basic reason why they are feeling a challenge about a corporate restructuring. So far, any doubts? I'll take a pause of 1 minute. If you have doubt, you can post in chat box. Any doubts? I guess no doubt. So I'll move further. Let's talk about the examples of transformation. I'll take Apple as a case study differently. Okay, let's talk about Kodak. Now, I don't think many of people remember what is the Kodak. Kodak is a filmmaking company. Earlier, we used to get cameras where we have to put the reels and that camera rolls, we used to create the images. Kodak was a market leader and it was supplying that cameras. So from 1880 to 1976, it has dominated almost 90% of camera market. Because that time it was the only option that if I want to click a photo, I want negatives, go to the Kodak. He will supply. In 1975, when the digital innovation was done, the Steve Sasson, he has invented the digital camera on 17th June 1975. After digital innovation, the need of camera roll was reduced. People, instead of printing photos, they start maintaining digital photos. The need for camera rolls was reduced, and people are now interested for more and more. After innovation of 2005, or I can say 2007, now most of the people instead of camera use their mobile phone as their camera, and simply because of this, the use of film which is made by Kodak was not there. The Kodak then in 2003 to 2011 has done multiple attempts with innovation or something, but it was not able to succeed. Why? Because from the period of 1975 till 2003, if you calculate 28 years, 28 years, Kodak just ignored the innovation. It simply stated, I'm not bothered about whether people go for the digital or something. I will just sell the products which I'm having, and I'm sure the people will purchase my role. The same thing happened about Sony. Sony has best products like television, mobiles. The two series was great. One is Sony Cybershot mobiles, where these lenses are now used by Nokia, Redmi, and Realme. They was having one of the best photographic and music phones, but they lack of innovations and they lost. Same way, the Kodak had made a loss and their attempts were failed. And in 2012, Kodak became bankrupt and it is closed the business. So legacy of 1973 is almost ended after a long journey of working. So if I calculate roughly 1980 20 plus 2, so 40 to 45 years company minimum has closed because they ignore restructuring, they ignore innovation, and they just surpass the feelings, sentiments, and market demands of customers. Now, before switching this, I want to explain the two more case studies. So, let give me 2 minutes. Let's talk about two case studies because these case studies are very crucial, and in examination you can earn the extra marks when you write these case studies. One is Kodak, second is Apple. All of you know who is Steve Jobs and what he has contributed. A Steve Jobs is a crazy technical person who has turned around the Apple, who has changed the future of Apple, who has made the journey of Apple. So let's understand the restructuring of Apple. So I've taken three case studies. One is Apple, second is Tata, and third is Hero Honda. So Steve Jobs was a technical expert who started working in Apple at Warner's. He was the person who invented the Apple iPhone and MacBooks in a different runaway. When initially he was making comments about the technical growth, He was being challenged and he was removed from Apple and he was shifted to the some operational departments for some technical works. His innovation was to challenge the mindset of people and give them the product which others cannot do. So he created Macintosh as a real desktop products alternate to the Asus and HP. It was a great hit, but downline when the innovation started in Windows series, the Apple was having a limited resources. So they ignored the innovations which is proposed. They removed the Steve Jobs from main core funds and it resulted into Apple's downline. After this, the Apple reappointed Steve Jobs as their CEO. He invented the things and he introduced new products. And then we have something called iPhone and Mac OS. And ultimately, the Apple has done the turnaround. So this is the history. Steve Jobs in 1976, he joined the Apple. He changed the Apple's future by launching the IPO. Oh, I'm sorry, it's 7:59. So instead of moving further, just summarize what we learned today. We talk about more in detail about restructuring. We discuss restructuring is a process where we have to reshuffle the things by land, labor, capital, or process, considering the demands and likes and dislikes of the market. The second thing, we talk about operational restructuring, where the restructuring is done in operations. Organizational restructuring, it is done in human beings. Technological restructuring, it is change in technology. So all this restructuring is aimed for making profits. So we started discussing two case studies. One is Kodak and second is about Ambassador. The third and fourth case study will continue in next session. Thank you all of you for part of this session. It's now 8 a.m. You have next session lined up for the finance specialist students. So if any query, please write it down and please share with me in next session. Thank you all of you. Wish you a wonderful day ahead. We'll meet in the evening for financial reporting session and wish you a wonderful day ahead. Thank you. Good day. Now you can leave the meeting and join the next session.